Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to all of you, and to those who are visitors, welcome to the Fashion Institute of Technology. My name is Dr. Joyce Brown, and I am the president of the college. Before we begin, I would really like to recognize some very special guests we have here with us today. Of course, we have the Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi. They told me I should say hold the applause, and I know that's useless. So, Governor Andrew Cuomo. We have some representatives in the audience. Some are caught in traffic, but please know that they're either here or on their way. Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, Congressman Jerry Nadler, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, Congressman Jose Serrano, Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez, right here in the front row. Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, welcome. Councilwoman Lori Cumbo. And Christine Quinn, Special Advisor to the Governor. Dr. Howard Zucker, who is our Commissioner for the Department of Health, and our own very special student, Jessica Accardi, who is a member of our student government. I would also like to recognize that we have with us a number of leaders and advocates and service providers in the field of rape and sexual assault, domestic violence prevention, reproductive rights and health care, labor, and protecting the rights of women and girls. We really admire the work that you do. We're here to address an important issue facing college students on campuses across our state and indeed our nation, the epidemic of sexual violence. As a society, we need to do more to end this kind of violence, especially on college campuses where sadly it's prevalent and where students tend to assume that they are safe. We're joined today by Democratic Leader Pelosi, who has been a national voice on the issue of sexual violence through her support for the Violence Against Women Act. In concert with the Democratic leader's efforts and at the urging of Governor Cuomo, the State University of New York last year adopted a uniform set of policies to protect against sexual assault on college campuses. These policies include affirmative assent and a Student's Bill of Rights. This year, the governor has proposed extending these measures to apply to all colleges and universities in New York State, both public and private. You know, as the president of a public college, I am proud to say that FIT has signed on to this initiative. It helps to ensure that every one of our 10,000 students feels protected as they learn and grow through some of the most exciting years of their lives. Governor, FIT is by your side as you lead the nation in the fight against sexual assault on college campuses, because enough really is enough. So please join me now in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. It is great to be here today, and I have an opportunity to recognize a dear friend of mine from my time in Congress, Leader Pelosi. I just heard her speak across town a few minutes ago, and if you could see what I saw, the passion, the conviction, the fighting spirit that we have in our Leader Pelosi, not just as the country so fortunate, but as New Yorkers, we are blessed to have her representing us. Leader Pelosi, thank you. Thank you. And she has been a staunch advocate for women and students. In fact, Leader Pelosi mentioned the Violence Against Women Act, Dr. Brown did. I recall it during our time in Congress. It was so crazy down there that in order to make sure that the student loan interest rate didn't double, we would have had to vote against the Violence Against Women Act. Remember how they structure those two together? So I'm actually happy to be in Albany with the governor because we can actually get some things done like we're talking about today. Our record of accomplishment shows that. But we just celebrated Mother's Day yesterday. And as a mother, as you send your daughter off to college, as I did just a few years ago, and as many people in this room have, you have trepidation, you have fear in your heart. But you also know that it's our job to liberate them, to allow them to experience the growth they have on a college campus. But sometimes that is set backwards with the specter of a horrible assault on a young woman who just simply wants to have a fun time with her friends, and all of a sudden she becomes a victim, a survivor. And today we are here to say, in following the leadership of our governor, enough is enough. And when he first laid out this initiative at a very significant cabinet meeting a few months ago, he asked me, teaming up with my friend Chris Quinn, to go out all across the state and make sure we have this dialogue on college campuses with the students, the survivors, the advocates, the administrators, and make sure that we're doing it right. And I feel after conducting these efforts all across the state, from Long Island to Western New York and hundreds of places in between, we have the right formula to address this heart-wrenching issue. And I spent a lot of time looking in the eyes of survivors. And you've got to have a heart of stone not to be moved by their stories and say, I as a human being feel we need to do something about this and make sure that we end this right here and now in the state of New York. And that is what's motivated our governor as well. And I've seen it in his passion, I've seen it in his conviction to make sure that this becomes not just an idea, but actually becomes the law of the state of New York. His reforms are going to make a difference. And I want to just give you a brief overview of exactly what they will do. First of all, a statewide uniform definition of consent. And I can't tell you how many times I heard from survivors, they said, if only we had that, because then it puts the power back in my hands, not someone else's, and the governor will address this and why this is important as well. Also an amnesty policy. We sat around table after table, and I said, why don't people come forward? Why is this swept under the rug? Because of fear that if you violated a campus policy against alcohol, underage drinking, or against drug use, that you could all of a sudden be penalized for that. That's over now, folks. We want to make sure it's important enough that you know you come forward with this story, that you don't need to worry about that. So amnesty was an important element of bringing this out into the daylight. Thank you. It also requires comprehensive training of administrators, because we don't know which person the survivor is going to go to for help, whether it's a classmate, an RA, an administrator, a favorite professor. They all need to be trained to understand how to deal with this when it occurs. And last year, as you heard, under the governor's direction, this became the policy in the state of New York for SUNY schools. But we have many students who have not been covered. We want to make sure that we cover everyone. Every one of the 1.2 million students in the state of New York are protected by a standard model, not just for the state of New York, but it's happened in so many times. When our governor takes the lead, not only does New York follow, but the rest of the country follow, and that is our expectation after we get this enacted, this law. We anticipate that this will be the hallmark, the benchmark of how we deal with sexual assault all across this nation. So at this time, it gives me a tremendous honor, a privilege of mine, to introduce my friend, our leader of the Congress, leader of the House of Representatives in Congress, Nancy Pelosi. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Let us applaud Kathy Hochul for her wonderful leadership and her strong statement on Governor Cuomo, Lieutenant Governor Hochul, Madam President. That has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? And Jessica Accardi. It's an honor for me to be here with each of you and with all of your guests here today, and with my colleagues from the House of Representatives. The Violence Against Women Act was mentioned, and I want to come back to it for a moment, Governor, to put into context the challenges that we face. It took over 600 days. The Violence Against Women Act was not being brought up. But we took it to the public. We made the issue too hot to handle. And finally, they said they would bring it up. But the bill they wanted to bring up was violence against women. We want to stop violence against women unless you're an immigrant woman, an LGBT woman, or a Native American woman. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Of course, we said no. And under leadership of Jerry Nadler from the Judiciary Committee, Nydia Velasquez fighting for immigrant women, and so many other of our colleagues in the Congress, we were able to pass a bill that was ending violence against all women. I want to commend the governor. What you've done in New York State is outstanding. It's a family tradition with him, though. I want to acknowledge Maria Cuomo Cole for her work in terms of violence against women in the military. She's been such a leader in that regard. Thank you, Maria. So this idea against violence against women is something that has to be put to rest wherever it occurs, no matter what the orientation is of a woman. And that's why today is so special. I want to commend the governor for his leadership. The Department of Justice says that 1 in 5 women is sexually assaulted while in college. 1 in 5 women. 40% of college sexual assault survivors fear reprisal by the perpetrator. That is unacceptable. Enough is enough. This is an epidemic in some ways, and that's why we're all so grateful to Governor Cuomo's strong leadership and the bold action to protect New York's college students. Affirmative consent is a vital standard to adopt in combating the scourge of campus sexual assault. My own state of California, I'm very, very proud that we were to adopt an early adopter of yes means yes legislation. But New York has done us one better. Our California initiative legislation was just for schools that received funding from the state. The governor's protected every student in the state of New York, regardless of that. And that is a very major accomplishment. That is a tremendous model for the nation. It is of personal and national significance. Thank you, Governor Cuomo, for your great leadership. And that is an applause line. I'm also proud of the Obama administration for continuing to take strong action to combat sexual assault on college campuses. Since the beginning of last year, the White House Task Force to Protect Students from Sexual Assault, called Not Alone initiative, has provided resources to students, to schools, and to advocates in the front line of this fight, notalone.gov. In partnership with hundreds of schools, sports organizations, and companies, the task force It's On Us, the responsibility, It's On Us campaign has held over 600 events, nearly half on campuses, to empower students to respond and to prevent sexual assault. This is all great. But it is not a substitute for what the governor is doing here, which is to put into law this very strong standard to apply to all college students in the state of New York. So we have to attack this problem on campus and in the Congress. And the states like California and New York can create a drumbeat across America, and of course the New York drumbeat is stronger with your other provision. And I again thank Kathy Hochul for her leadership in traveling across New York to talk with students, to listen to advocates and survivors trying to end this epidemic. How beautifully she spoke of looking into the eyes of a survivor. Thank you again, Governor Cuomo, for taking this bold and vital action to confront campus sexual assault today. It is really important for you. I know you see it here, and sometimes we take for granted what has happened, but you have to know how very bold the action New York State has taken is. An example, a model for the country. Now it's my pleasure to introduce a very special guest, probably the person of the hour here. She is a junior at SUNY, Fashion Institute of Technology, treasurer of the Fashion Institute of Technology Student Government, and the recently elected treasurer of the statewide SUNY Student Assembly, Jessica Accardi.
Thank you. Thank you, Democratic Leader Pelosi, and good morning to all of you. My name is Jessica Carty, and I'm a student at FIT. As we talk about sexual assault and rape on college campuses, I want to give a student's perspective on the issue. I am currently the treasurer of the student government here at FIT, and I'm newly elected, stepping into the role of treasurer of the SUNY statewide student assembly. I am proud to be representing both my school and SUNY because I know that these roles I can make a difference to all our students' lives. I've read too many stories about sexual violence on our college campuses. For students like me, this is reality that no day goes by that we need to worry about our safety. I know too well stories where students are drugged, overpowered, and assaulted, even raped, and left to pick up the pieces of their lives all alone. This is a terrible situation, but one that is made so much worse if their schools fails to protect and support them. Sexual violence, a crime that can happen anywhere. It happens here in New York and in every state across the country. It happens at both public universities and private colleges nationwide. But it's time that we put an end to that. It's time that every college and university across the nation stood up and adopted comprehensive policies against sexual assault. Policies that both support victims and work to prevent these heinous crimes from ever happening. I am proud, very proud, to be a student at FIT. Last year, our college answered Governor Cuomo's call and joined all SUNY institutions in adopting and implementing a set of policies to protect students. Turn page. But the truth is not that every school lives up to our awesome standards, and why the state legislature must pass Governor Cuomo's bill, a bill that takes SUNY's aggressive model and applies it to all New York schools, not just SUNY schools. Before I wrap up, there's one more thing I would like to add. In addition to being involved in our student government, I'm a resident assistant here on campus. I work with younger students who, like me, are pursuing their dream at studying here at FIT. As an RA, I think about their safety very often and want to have every resource and opportunity available to them. And thanks to FIT's strong sexual assault policy, I think now we can have it handled. But shouldn't all students in New York State be protected like that? Shouldn't we be ensuring that every college, every student, public or private, stands up for students and supports them? I think we should, and I bet you do too. Thank you. All students should be protected, no matter what school they go to. So now please join me in welcoming, and I'm very honored to welcome, who is fighting to make sure that this happens statewide, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jessica Accardi, isn't she great? Let's give her another round of applause. Well, first, it is my pleasure to be back at FIT. I want you to know what a magnificent institution I believe this is and what a magnificent leader you have in Joyce Brown. Let's give her a round of applause. For those of you who are not in FIT, it's always an intimidating place for me to come. You feel like you're being judged on your fashion ability, and I am obviously fashion challenged, as you can tell. I want you to know I made the best effort I could this morning. I wore a black suit because I always wear a black suit, but I wore the fanciest tie that I have. And if you notice, it changes color depending on your perspective. And I thought that was my fashion statement for the day, so I hope it's acceptable. To our great Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, she's been a great team member. She hit the ground running. Let's give her a round of applause. To my sister who is here, Maria Cuomo. She was introduced by the leader, Maria Cuomo Cole, which is technically correct. Cole is her married name. I don't acknowledge the married name until the 50th wedding anniversary. I will acknowledge it. Maria Cuomo, who's been very active on this effort. Christine Quinn, who's been carrying this banner all over the state. Let's give her a round of applause. Dr. Howard Zucker, our health commissioner, who's here. Alexandra Pelosi, the leader's daughter, and her husband on the same theory of first names matter. And last but not least, to our leader, who won a great award this morning, the Eleanor Roosevelt Award this morning, which she very well deserves. She is a national inspiration. For me, it's always special to be in the leader's presence with my sister Maria. My father was a phenomenal fan of the leaders for many, many years, and they went back many, many years. And whenever Nancy would come on the TV, my father would quiet everyone down because he wanted to watch what the leader was saying, and he would have this great broad smile on his face. And he would say the same thing every time she finished. He would say, "Wow, isn't she great?" And I say, "Wow, isn't she great?" Leader Nancy Pelosi, we're so proud of her. To our colleagues, our members of Congress who are here today, thank you very much. Carolyn Maloney and Nydia Velasquez, Jerry Nadler, let's give them a round of applause. And as you've heard, we're here to talk about sexual assault on campus. But think of it this way, if you can. Sexual assault on campus is not really the illness. It's not the problem. It's a symptom of the illness. And the problem, the illness, is that we are in a society that still discriminates against women and that still treats women unequally. Now, that is a very powerful and dramatic statement when you think about it. That the governor of the state of New York, the state that started women's suffrage, the state that is the progressive model for the country, could get up and make such a broad statement. But it is true. We treat women differently. That's why we proposed in this state a Women's Equality Act, a 10-point Women's Equality Act. Why do you need a 10-point Women's Equality Act? Because we don't treat women equally. And if you want to solve a problem, the first step is always admission of the problem and admitting the scope of the problem. And the evidence is all across the board, and the evidence is damning. A woman will make $11,000 less per year in a similar position than a man. A woman will make on average $500,000 less than a man. A woman is 32 times less likely to become a CEO than a man. A woman is 5 times more likely to become a victim of sexual harassment than a man. 2 times more likely to be a victim of lending discrimination. 2 times more likely to wind up living in poverty than a man. Those statistics are inarguable. And the less power the women have, the worse it is. Today we're starting a multi-agency effort to help women who work in nail salons. Why? Because the women who work in nail salons tend not to have resources, they tend not to have power, they tend not to have lawyers with them. Sometimes they are of questionable legal status, so they're afraid to go to the authorities to make a complaint, and they are extorted, and they are victimized. Many of them don't even get paid the minimum wage and can't do anything about it. So it is all through society. And as it is immigrants who are working in nail salons, it's young women on college campuses. That statistic, 1 out of 5 might be a victim of sexual assault. Think about that. How damning. And I'll tell you what's worse. Only 5% of rapes on college campuses are reported. 5%. Worse than that, 10% of the perpetrators who are found guilty of sexual assault are permanently expelled. We are still covering this up. We are still unwilling to admit this. We are still in a state of denial, like we are with domestic violence, like we are with so many other issues. We don't want to address the problem that we victimize women in our society. And the sexual assaults are a perfect manifestation of that. You heard the Lieutenant Governor go through the bill, but the most important point to me is this is not a campus disciplinary issue. See, right now, it's treated by and large as a campus disciplinary issue. Meaning what? Meaning a woman makes a complaint and the campus security responds. And the campus security reports it to an academic committee for dissolution. No, it's not a violation of the campus rules. It's not a violation of campus policy. It's not that it violated the campus motto. It is a crime, and it has to be treated that way. And all the incentive for the campus is what? Keep it quiet. Keep it quiet, make it go away. Why are only 5% reported? Because from the campus's interest, they don't want it reported. They don't want a headline in the newspaper that says, Acme campus had another rape on. That's bad for business. It's bad for recruitment. So make it go away. And they interview the woman, and then they interview the man, and they come back, and they say to the woman, you know, there's two sides here. There's two sides. And he says this. And he says you were drinking. And he says, you know, you have a reputation. And he says you said, and the woman says, you know what, maybe we let this go away. Maybe that is the easiest path. That's why only 5% are reported. And what happens? She feels guilty rather than feeling like the victim, which is what she was. And the perpetrator lives to do it another day. And that's why the recidivism rates are as high as they are. So first, change your orientation, change the culture, change the mindset. It is not a campus problem. It's not. It's a police problem. And as soon as it happens in this bill, you hand that woman a card, like she gets the Miranda rights, you hand that woman a card that says, you have the right to contact the police, town, county, we're putting together a special unit in the state police. Here's the state police hotline, call the police, treat it like a criminal justice matter. Your rights were violated. You have nothing to be ashamed of. I'm not going to let the campuses cover it up anymore. You have the right to go to the police, make your case. If that person was guilty, get them out, make them pay the crime so it won't happen again. That's what this law says. And then affirmative consent, because yes is yes, as they say in California. The answer has to be yes. The answer isn't, well, she didn't say no. I didn't hear her say no. It is a question of affirmative consent and then providing amnesty so people will actually come forward. This will be the toughest law in the nation. And I am proud of that. Why? Because number one, we will protect our students in this state better than any other state has ever protected their students. I don't care if you go to a SUNY school. SUNY already adopted this policy. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you to SUNY. but it will apply to every school in the state, one uniform standard. Doesn't make a difference if you visit. And it will be the strongest in the nation, and we will do it. And then Leader Pelosi has a great advantage. Why? Because as she's making the case for this bill in Congress and around the country, she doesn't have to argue it in the abstract. Wouldn't it be nice if we could? Maybe we propose. She can say, this has been done. They did this in the state of New York. This is possible. Follow New York. And that's what New York has always done so brilliantly. When you look back at our history, we were always the first. We were always the first to have a more progressive vision, a more fair vision. And we made it happen. My father used to say, God rest his soul, New York leads by example. Watch what we do, not what we say. Follow our actions. We did it on marriage equality, where we stepped up and we said, we're not going to discriminate against people based on sexual orientation. We're going to let everyone marry. We did it when it came to guns, and everyone said, oh, no, you can't do gun control. We did gun control, the best law in the United States. We're going to do it with fair wages for fast food workers who have been extorted long enough. And we're going to do it on this issue of sexual assault, protecting women, recognizing the inequality, recognizing the injustice, and saying women are totally equal to men, and we're going to stop it, and we're going to stop it here. The victimization will stop because it's not who we are. It's not what we believe. It's not what we represent. And watch New York do it. Thank you, and God bless you.
Governor, for your great leadership on this very important issue. Thank you to Leader Pelosi. Thank you all for being here. I think you know that we all have a job to do. So carry the message, protect our students. Thank you all for being here. Have a great day.